Today, we've got Matt Thompson. Matt is the owner and CEO of BugPro Pest Solutions, located in the Reno, Tahoe area. He's also a former Airborne Ranger for the United States Army, which is awesome.
I think that most of our viewers out there probably share the same exact sentiment, but such a massive amount of respect for our brothers and sisters in the armed services.
100%.
Like when you're in the military and you're literally training to fight, you're training to go to war, you're training to defend this great country of ours. You know, one of the things that you realize is that the people that you have around you are everything. You have to have people, if you're going to do anything worth anything in life, you have to have people around you that you trust and that have your best interest at heart.
Welcome to the Bug Bucks podcast, a podcast designed to turn you into a bug money millionaire. This episode is brought to you by Bug Bucks Plus, the #1 training and education platform designed to help you build and scale your pest control company. I'm your host, Eric Bassett, and of course, right next to me, got my co-host, Jay Klaus. What's up, dude?
Eric, what's up? And my Bug Bucksers. What's happening, guys?
We are recording from the Bug Bucks podcast studio up here in Vancouver, Washington. And the season is upon us, dude. It's it's Memorial Day weekend. Well, basically. We'll be
not right now, but when this podcast airs, we'll be coming up on it. But yeah, the summer is upon us. Technician meeting. We record this episode on Wednesday. We have our technician meeting every Wednesday, and this morning I gave my annual "The summer is upon us" speech. Yes. You know, don't miss those $2,000 wasp nests. Don't miss those $2,000 spider webs. You know, and our service team is just stellar. We've got a couple of new guys that are just like on fire. So
yep.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. And today we've got a fantastic guest. You guys are going to love hearing from him. Longtime supporter of the podcast and the Facebook group. But before we bring him on, just want to remind everybody listening, the best way to receive new episodes is by subscribing to our show on your preferred podcast platform like Apple, YouTube, Audible, or Spotify. If you love the show, please leave us a rating and a review. Make sure to check out our Facebook group, Bug Bucks Plus. That is BUGBUX Plus. We've got over 4,200 other pest control owners in that group waiting to connect with you and share their thoughts. It's also the best way for you to share your feedback on our show and have your questions highlighted and discussed here on the podcast. So make sure you find us on Facebook and join the group. All right. Yeah. So I'm going to read the intro for our guest today. Super stoked about this. It's going to be awesome. Today, we've got Matt Thompson. Matt is the owner and CEO of BugPro Pest Solutions, located in the Reno, Tahoe area. He's also a former Airborne Ranger for the United States Army, which is awesome. So badass, dude. Yeah. And like most of us, Matt wasn't looking for a career in pest control, ended up kind of landing in his lap, but he believes his love for his family, his love for his industry, and his military experience will help him build a brand that will help change the industry for the better. Matt, welcome to the show, dude. How are you doing?
Thank you, guys. Yeah, I'm fantastic. Could not be in a better position in my life. Just excited about the future and, you know, what we can do in this industry to help other people, you know.
Yeah. Love that, dude.
Yeah.
You know, so I connected with Matt on Facebook. Oh, shoot. What was that? February or so? It was a few months ago. Yeah, a few months ago. And we just had like this great chat over Messenger. And I was like, dude, Matt, we need to get you on the podcast. And so we're trying to time it so that we can air Matt's podcast on Memorial Day because of Matt's military background. And, you know, Eric and I just have, I think that most of our viewers out there probably share the same exact sentiment, but such a massive amount of respect for our brothers and sisters in the armed services.
100%.
I come from a long line of military people. In fact, I'm the only male in 2 generations that didn't join the military. I tried pre 9/11, but believe it or not, full disclosure, is my criminal record that kept me out of the military. It wasn't anything like big or bad, just, you know, they were more picky, I think, before 9/11. But yeah, both of my grandfathers served in the Air Force. My dad was a chaplain in the Army during the Vietnam era. My older brother was in the Idaho Guard for several years, and then was in the Air Force as a JAG officer. My younger brother was Army Intel with the Idaho Guard, served 2 tours in Iraq. My brother-in-law had, I think he's the military contractor now, but he was like 20 years in the Guard and Army, and they live in Germany. And so, dude, I just have like such a massive amount of respect for our brothers and sisters that serve. And I'm excited to have Matt on the show so that we can just have Matt like share his journey.
Yeah.
And just take a moment to admire, respect, and honor him, and to honor all of the veteran PCOs that are out there. There's a lot of them. In fact, my younger brother's one of them. He has a pest control company in Boise, Presto Pest Control.
Nice.
And so Matt, tell us about your military experience.
Yeah. So high school, coming out of high school, I didn't really have any direction. I knew that I didn't, excuse me. I knew that I didn't want to continue to go to school. So I had to figure something else out. And just the recruiter was, coming around the different classrooms and stuff. And, that's when I first got interested in doing something other than, what my family expected, just to continue my education. I just was not ready for it. So, in talking to the recruiter, he painted a pretty good picture of what my life would be like in the military.
Jumping out of helicopters.
yeah. Plenty of that, but, I knew that I needed something to hold me over until I figured out what I wanted to do with my life, and the military was a very viable option. It was a steady paycheck. It was something that I was already at a high level of energy. So I knew that I would be a good fit for the military. And, I just wanted to go balls out, so to speak, and, have a great military career and make a difference. As arbitrary as that sounds, one guy in the military can't do it without a team, but, definitely my goal to, just be something somewhere for somebody,
Right.
Yeah.
In the military, I found that in the military. I went in a boy. I tell everybody the story. I went in a boy and came out a man. It grew me up. It gave me a lot of sense of self-worth. I figured out what I was capable of, what I wasn't capable of, and I learned, that life is not usually going to work out the way that you want it to, that you have to put a lot of effort and, timing into, the things that you want to do that are successful in life, So I ended up doing my 4 years in the military and had a great time. Ranger training was some of the best time I had, and met some of the best guys that I'm still friends with today. We still keep in contact, and they're over the US. So it's a pretty neat, kind of like the pest control field. You meet people at events and stuff like that are spread out across the United States and even the world. There's a couple of PCOs that I know over in the UK, and it's just been a wild ride since the military. The military gave me a sense of purpose. So when I got out, I knew that I knew that I wanted to be a business owner in something, but pest control so far off the radar that I had no idea. So I ended up, just getting a job, I think at a construction warehouse supply company for $10 an hour, loading trucks and doing that kind of thing. And I did that for a couple of years. And then, my sister actually worked at the local newspaper down here, and her boss was the wife of a pest control company manager, a fairly large West Coast company.
Okay.
And she had just come to me and said, "Hey, my boss says her husband needs some help at their pest control company." And I was like, "Pest control?
Interesting.
What's that all? What's it pay?"
What is that? Right?
Yeah. What is that? What am I going to be doing? I was more concerned with the pay, because at that time I was only making $10 an hour. So, nothing to brag about. And, she said she didn't know, just had let this individual know that I was interested. So I had an interview, and, the way that he let me know what was going to be needed, from a technician perspective, was it just hit home with me. It felt like something that I had been looking for, like something I could belong to, a team that I could, utilize my leadership skills that I learned from the military to, help a company grow. It was an opportunity for me to make a difference. So I ended up getting hired. Started right shortly after the season started. So, I think it was May or June that I got hired.
Yeah.
I was like,
you got like balls to the walls right away.
Right. Yeah. I was thrown to the wolves, but it's something that, I just picked up on real easily, and I don't consider myself like an ultra genius or intelligent, on that end of the spectrum, but I was smart enough to know that I had fallen into something that, was going to mean something to me over the long term. And that resonated with my heart in terms of, having a family again. There's obviously nothing wrong with my family, but being part of, a group of people that had a common interest and common goals, was huge for me, and at the end of my first, few months there, the end of my first year, I had made more money in that 7 months, than I had in my entire military career. I think I ended somewhere in 7 months, I made like 50 or 60K, more money than I had ever seen, known what to do with. And I was just a young, dumb 20, I think it was 23 when I got my first job. And I just, I was making such good money and having such a good time that I had to celebrate on the weekends.
Right.
And, it was just, that was my first year, was kind of, an eye opener, and it solidified that this is what I wanted to do with my life. Had no idea that I wanted to own a company. I was still so far from that. I didn't realize, the capabilities I had, and knowing inside that I had what it took to own a company. So I just had the attitude, I'm going to work my tail off, and I'm going to move up, and I'm going to be a supervisor, a manager. And, I had all these grandeur illusions that it was going to happen in my pest control career, that I was set, and, once you get into the pest control field, the first company you work for, typically, I believe for most people is, not their best experience, so it's, a situation where I had worked at this company for a couple of years, making great money, doing what I thought great things, but the management structure and the leadership that was set up there was a very difficult thing for me to assimilate into, simply because of my military background and, living a regulated lifestyle for those 4 years and being told what to do, when to do it, how to do it. I craved, what's the word I'm looking for? I craved stability and just a way of doing things, because military, you have a set of instructions, and that's how it's done. You don't question it. It just, that's the way it needs to be done. So that's what I was looking for in pest control. And I just always maybe felt that, the couple, I think I worked for 3 different companies, and I just felt that their vision wasn't customer based. It wasn't, it wasn't aimed at making the customer's life better. It was always communicated to me like I needed to make more money, and my route needed to be this size at the end of the year, and all that is great. You need to grow, and I get that, but I just felt uneasy about sacrificing customer service for growth. So that was the first kind of huge piece of information that I needed to start me on my path towards owning a company. So I, at that moment, decided to leave that company and go work for another company as a manager. I had gotten an offer as a manager, and I was like, well, maybe I can, make a little bit more of a difference as a manager in a company when I have, the say in, policies and procedures and all that kind of stuff. And I was hired on at a higher wage too. So even more money was coming my way, and I couldn't be more excited, but what I really wanted was just to land somewhere that was a good fit for me and that I could feel like I was contributing and making a difference, and still fell flat. So I was in the industry, going from, I worked for 4 different companies over the course of, I want to say 16 years, and done everything from tech work to sales to, management, supervisors. I was the utility guy for a little while, so I kind of dipped my toes in all aspects of the pest control field. And I liked it all. It was the companies that I worked for made it a little bit more difficult to work in those positions. But over the long term, I learned that I could do this myself, and I just got sick and tired of putting in the effort that I was putting in, running 250, 300K a year for these companies and not really feeling fulfilled, so that's the time where my brain, I believe, and that was probably 4 or 5 years ago, where my brain started to make the shift into, wanting to own my own company, and have my own set of rules and, build my own vision and my own ideas for what I wanted my company to do in the industry. And coincidentally, that's when I started listening to the podcast, so the timing was not, by accident, I don't believe. I believe it was a message from God saying, dude, you need to, stop dealing with this stuff that you're dealing with and do it yourself and do it better and do it, in a way that benefits, the people and makes you feel fulfilled at night. So talk to the wife and, she's like, let's do it. If we're going to do it, let's do it. Let's 100%.
That's the right kind of wife to have right there, huh?
Yeah. She was like, I hate spiders, and I'm not going to be anywhere near the business end of it, but I'll be back here supporting you and being your best cheerleader and all that kind of stuff. So the minute that she told me that, I knew that I had everything that I needed to build a massive company, that concentrated and kept their focus on taking care of the customer first, and that was, still is, and always going to be a main focus of mine. And running a smaller company as I am right now, it's easy, but I believe as it gets bigger, there are going to be challenges. And I don't believe there's ever going to be a time that there's a challenge that comes up that I'm not going to know who to plug into, something that I haven't learned, from your guys' podcast yet, but having spent the amount of time I have in the industry and feeling like, I'm just now starting to scratch the surface of what my capabilities are. It's just an amazing feeling, and I give a lot of gratitude for you guys, because it's crazy. It's crazy how it's worked out for me. And the sky's the limit and my future is bright, and there's a lot of thanks I give to you guys for that.
Oh, totally. Well, thank you. I appreciate, we appreciate that.
Yeah. 100%. And obviously, your journey and your story, like, we didn't expect that we were ever going to be, pest control business owners. And it kind of snuck up on us like it does with a lot of other guys, right?
I don't think anybody thinks about it. Like,
no,
they're in grade school. I want to kill bugs for a living.
It's not one of your, you're like astronaut, police officer, firefighter, ninja, pest control officer. Might not be in there yet. And it's just so great to hear that pest control is kind of delivering the similar opportunities that we've been able to find, right? Pest control is the vehicle that a lot of PCOs drive to bring fulfillment that is outside of what you would typically affiliate with pest control companies, right? I mean, you get leadership development, you're serving your community, serving other people, providing a ton of value and opportunities to all of your employees and your families. It's a huge thing. And it's always kind of fun when, you meet somebody who's new to the industry and they kind of start realizing all those things. And you're like, yeah, man, you get it. You got it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, welcome to the circle,
Yeah.
And, you have a ton of experience. And I wanted to ask, obviously transitioning from the military lifestyle and that whole format, going through all these other different pest control companies, and now you've got your own pest control company. I mean, me and Jake have talked about, SOPs, SOGs, all of our different policies and procedures. We wanted to have a very organized system, right? From leadership all the way down to frontline colleagues and all the processes we have. What were some of the first things when you started BugPro Pest Solutions that you were like, okay, I know that this works in the military format. I am going to integrate this into my own business. What were some of those first things for you?
Well, the first thing that pops into my mind is like when you're in the military and you're literally training to fight. You're training to go to war. You're training to defend this great country of ours. One of the things that you realize is that the people that you have around you are everything. They will. They're technically the life. They're either. What am I trying to say? Like your life is in their hands. So, I mean, if you go to war, you got to trust these guys. So, one of the things that was cemented in me early on in life is that, you have to have people, if you're going to do anything worth anything in life, you have to have people around you that you trust and that have your best interest at heart. So one of the things when I first started the company was that I wanted to concentrate on first was making sure that any customer that I had knew that what I was bringing to the table was done so in an honest way. I wanted to communicate to them, what was going to be going on at their house and what the expectations were going to be. And then most of all, just building that relationship with the customer so that they could trust you. I mean, we live in an area where in most areas in the US, but we have several hugely affluent areas, multi-million-dollar homes. So, I mean, these people are trusting you to be in their homes and around their stuff. And, so it was very important to me that I communicated that to the customer. In short, yeah, you can trust me around all your stuff because I'm here to do a job that you hired me to do, and I'm going to do that and make sure that I do it very well and right the first time. So to kind of tie that into the military experience, those were the expectations in the military. You mess up, somebody dies. I know it's not like that in the pest control world because even if it
can be though.
I mean, still going to kill a few bugs.
Yeah, but what the truth is that it can be that way.
Yeah.
I mean, there are it doesn't happen very frequently, but there are instances where a pest control technician has applied something incorrectly and people actually die. And we were talking, we interviewed the guys from Firehouse Pest. They're down in like the Scottsdale area. And we're talking about how there are just some public service industries that just immediately garner respect from the public and also trust, because integrity is a huge part of the fire service, the EMS community, police community, and military, right? So when you've got these people that own, multi-million-dollar homes, or even all the way down to just regular folks, and they find out, or they know, hey, you have a military background, you're an Airborne Ranger. It's like all of a sudden, all of these concerns that you might have, well, this guy's going to be on my property. This guy's going to have my gate code. There are going to be times where I've got to leave my key under the mat for this guy, or I'm going to give him the door code to my front door. There are a whole set of concerns that people are naturally going to have. But when it's when your PCO is a firefighter or an Army veteran, it's like all of those concerns will just blow away, because integrity is an inherent part of the culture of those services.
Absolutely.
So, if you came to my house and you said, "Yeah, I'm an airborne, Army Airborne Ranger veteran," I'd be like, "Okay, first of all, that's super badass. Second of all, I don't have to worry about your integrity. You're hired." So I think that's a huge plus for you. Have you noticed that as your?
I actually have. Yeah. I think, because I share that when I'm trying to get to know the customer, I want them to know me,
Oh yeah.
What's my military background. I definitely am proud of and want to convey that to the customer and just let them know that I'm not here to mess around. I'm here. You hired me for a reason, and we're going to go above and beyond to take care of that, and it's one thing to act that, I mean, that's the most important part of, talking whatever you're speaking to the customer, but, to communicate that and then back that up with action is a lost art, and I think even in the pest control world, we definitely need to step it up. There's a lot of us that are very committed to, making sure that the industry remains, trustworthy. There's a lot of guys that'll slip through the cracks and whatnot and make a bad name and probably turn that customer off to ever getting pest control again, but in the long term, my goal is to build a business through, being honest with the customer, just being very transparent and letting them know, because there's always going to be situations that come up that don't, work out the best way that we want, like there's several accounts that will start, and they'll have a big ant problem or, whatever. And we'll go and we'll assess the situation. We'll treat the way that we need to treat, and it doesn't work the first time, so
yeah.
If you're communicating that to the customer and managing those expectations, it's going to be easier for the customer to understand what's going on, and that's, if I'm telling that to the customer up front, they respect that more,
Totally.
So on top of me just explaining that I have a military background, is that first step. And then the second step is just saying, hey, I'm here. I see and know what your problem is, and I'm going to take care of it. Whatever that means. If I have to come back a few times to take care of this issue, it's done. I'm your guy.
That's the integrity speaking.
And and I like just looking at my customer list and, keeping track of, cancel reasons and all that kind of stuff. Like being a newer company, these are things that I'm learning as I go. Eric, I know you're a big one on numbers and, tracking all the different, things that you should be tracking in your company. And I follow you a lot more closely than you would probably think, because I need to have those things set up, because we're $100,000 a year company right now, but, in a couple of years, we're going to be in an area where we're going to have these systems and processes, set up, and just going back to all the episodes that I've listened to over the years, like having these things set up, and you guys preach it into the ground, like having these processes and procedures set up before you need them is paramount in reaching the levels of success that you want. And success for me is not necessarily the money. I think that's going to be a byproduct, but, if I can, do something in this area to really, put a good name on the pest control industry, that's my goal. If when people look up, they're Googling pest control and they see my name on page one, eventually, they're going to be like, oh, I've heard of that company before, because they do it with Natura and, these bigger companies and stuff like that. They're like, yeah, we know who those companies are, and they represent integrity and honesty, and, they don't overcharge. And, it's one of those things that's so easy for me to do, because it's already part of my goal, is to just provide, a high level of service that makes sense to the customer, where they're glad, to send that money to your bank account or write that check or whatever, that customer is doing. I still have customers that write checks too. So
yeah, we do too. Actually, we've got customers that are with their cane, they walk in.
Right.
And they pay, and the office girls know him. Hi, Frank. Hi, Nina. He walks in with his
Well, that's what's so funny is that you always have these customers, and the ones who stop by the office, which that's never been really a thing. We've never told people to come by and pay their bill.
Right.
But the ones who stop by the office are the ones who you're like, you really didn't have to make the trip, like,
Yeah.
yeah, they have a cane, they like get out of their car and it takes them a few minutes to get to the door and you're like,
Yeah.
why did you decide to come all the way down here,
Yeah.
But that's the way they like to do it. That's the way they've always done it, and it's always kind of fun to,
totally cool with that.
yeah, they come in, they like to see everybody.
If they're saying thank you, you've done great. While they're handing me that check, that's what I'm after. It's just a job well done. And being in the industry also, I mean, you're going to run into situations where you do such a good job that the customers aren't going to need you, which is fine also, but, again, just it all leads back to me, like all my experiences in the military and the companies that I work for and everything. I just have a very laser focus on providing a level of pest control that doesn't change no matter how big I get,
Yep.
And I think with mentors like you guys in the industry and countless guests that I can't even count really, that have built businesses the way that I want to build the business. Like you guys have already paved the way. You've already done it, so it's having a podcast like this and just laying out a map on how you got there is there should be 3,000 companies that are multimillionaire companies if they want to get to that point with no problem, and there's always going to be those guys that, just want to run a route themselves. They want to be a route manager and, run their 250, 300K a year, which is a very, very good life, but at the same time, it's at the point now where I know the company's growing and the money's going to come, but I now need to figure out how I can, maintain that high level of customer service and, just providing exceptional high levels, no matter how big I get, so listening to the podcast is huge in that because we get a lot of information from you guys. That's definitely
nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. Well, and it's crazy, if you think about it, we've talked about this before in the past few weeks, the quality versus size of company or quality versus quantity,
Right. Yep.
And the one thing that the military has just beat to death and has worked so hard at doing is maintaining the same SOPs, SOGs, standards from the very bottom all the way to the top, right? Everything's consistent across the board.
Yeah.
And it's still a struggle for any company or the military to do that. And the more effort you put into it, the more that you can rely on that consistency. And your perspective of maintaining this customer-centric purpose, right? From being a 100K company to $1 million company to a $10 million company, that philosophy is going to do amazing things for you. And I think it's going to do amazing things for your team too, because, you eventually you're going to start hiring technicians, right? And office staff and sales guys, and the list goes on. And those people are going to want the same type of consistency and structure that you've been attracted to coming from the military. And I would probably argue that you might be likely to hire some other veterans, right?
Absolutely.
And they're going to want that.
Yeah.
I mean, they're almost going to assume that that's what's there, right? And I want to circle back to something that you mentioned about your team being everything, right? And these team members that you're trusting your life with. And I was watching it was an Instagram reel from Simon Sinek talking about stuff. I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan.
Me too.
But he said that he was interviewing these SEAL team operators, right? And he asked them about how they had just an epic level of effectiveness as operators. And they wrote this little diagram, and it was trust on one side and performance on the other, right? And you had highs and lows.
Yeah.
And he said, everybody wants a team member that is high performance, high trust, right? You trust the guy with your life, and he's a really high performer, right? And he said that a lot of times people will assume that the next best thing is maybe a guy who high performs, but he's low trust, right? And he said that the high performers that are low trust are the toxic leaders. They're the toxic team members, right? And those are the guys you actually want to avoid. And he said they would rather have a guy who is high trust, low performance, than a guy who is high performance, low trust.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
And obviously, the guys who are low performance, low trust, you kick to the curb.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No waste of time.
Yeah. And it was so refreshing to hear you talk about how you're relying so much on the team members, the people around you, right? And when you're a solo operator, you kind of have these team members that are, maybe it's your spouse, maybe it's friends, maybe it's the customers that you're working with. But as you eventually build up that team of people surrounding you, and you have the same types of philosophies and the same types of vision, that level of trust really is everything, like you were talking about.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's the first and foremost thing that you need, but thanks to you guys and the podcast, again, I just give a lot of credit to what you guys have done and continue to do. I again don't believe that I would be where I'm at today and have the vision that I have had I not gotten advice from you guys.
No, thanks, man. That's awesome.
A lot of stuff that makes a lot of sense to me, which is why I'm your biggest fan, and always will be. I don't ever want this podcast to end. I know there's
I don't think we do either. Yeah.
But, hopefully there's other guys in the industry that are able to fill your shoes when you guys are, ready to move on. But until then, I'm going to be listening like I have the last 4 or 5 years. It's part of my daily routine. I get my truck set up, get my little schedule book and everything ready for the day. And before I even pull out of the driveway, I'm searching through what episode I want to listen to, or even because I'll listen to a few throughout the day, but I definitely
love that
favorites, but
I love that.
I love it, dude. So what's, for BugPro Pest Solutions, what we talked about, we're right in the thick of the season now. What's on your guys' mind right now? What's the big focus for you going through the rest of this season?
So at the end of last year, we had a good amount of growth. And I didn't really put a whole lot of effort into the growth end of things. I just wanted to make sure that the way I was doing my services was consistent. The way I was conveying my information to the customers, how I had, all the behind the scenes stuff set up, I wanted to make sure was ready for this season. Mm-hmm. So once the season ended last year, I think I even listened to an episode where you guys were talking about don't make any big changes in your season. Yeah. Wait, even if you're doing things a little, just wait until get through the season. Yeah. And once the slow season starts, that's when you want to kind of reassess where you're at, where you're going, and what you need to do to get there. So,
is there a slow season in Reno?
What's that?
Is there a slow season in Reno?
Oh yeah, yeah, it gets cold. Yeah,
I guess it does get cold, huh? Yeah. I guess
it's October rolls in, and we're so close to the Sierra Mountains.
That's right.
Our ski resorts are 45 minutes away, an hour away, so we get snow. And it's funny because this season has been a little weird. I was ready to hit the ground running. April gets here. I've got my whole list of customers. I'm ready to make the money, and then we just have like the biggest snowstorm of the year drop right in the middle of winter or right in the middle of April. And there was like 8 inches of snow that we woke up to. So that literally grounded us all for probably a week.
That happened up here, two Aprils in a row, last year and the year before.
Yeah.
Just this, April begins. It's so nice. It's beautiful. And then all of a sudden you get this freak snowstorm that just dumps in the middle of April, and we're like, this is the end. Is it the end of the world?
I was kind of thinking on here, and I was like, okay, God, what don't I have ready that you're giving me extra time for?
Yep.
So I actually ended up getting my termite license in that time. So I just studied for a week and then took it that next week, and I'm like, oh, okay. And funny thing about that is, and again, I don't know the listeners' faiths and all that kind of stuff, but I'm a big one in what God provides. And that snowstorm, had that snowstorm not come, not get my termite license, I've had 2 real estate agents that I have relationships with that I told that are just throwing business at me now. Every refi, every house that they're selling, I do their inspections for them now. It's like, one of those things that just happened that you have to give thanks to God for, because had that snowstorm not happened, I might not be in the position to make however much extra I'm going to make this year, you know?
Yep. The obstacle is the way, man. The obstacle is the way.
Yeah. But with the off season and kind of planning for this upcoming season, you know, with another Bug Bucks listener, I've got, you know, he put forward like a door knocking A to Z program, you know, and it's a huge deal because I just don't have experience on the doors, but over the years have listened to you, Eric, both you and Alan talk about, you know, the advantage of having an effective door knocking team, you know, and I know like the upper echelon, some companies are adding 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 customers a season, you know, but like the lower end guys that are just me or running a guy and a technician, you know, if they're adding 200 or 300 customers on the season, you know, by knocking doors, that's massive growth for us, you know? So, you know, that's one of the things that, so back to your question about what's going on with BugPro moving forward. So now that we're in the season, the goal is growth, but concentrating on that personal aspect relationship with the customer, you know, and I do get nervous about it because we did just get a new technician licensed. So he's still working full time, and he's riding with me on his days off, you know, to start training. But just to see his demeanor and his attitude and just his outlook on what he feels where he's going to be in 5 years, it just makes my heart happy, you know. Just for him to ride with me and see what I'm doing, and for him to, I can visually see him falling in love with the industry. It's huge, you know. So it's again, it's my responsibility to make sure that these guys are shaped right, you know, that they share in the collective vision of the company, you know, moving forward, you know. And I tell everybody, because your guys' podcast changed my life, I tell everybody that I work with, train, that they need to be listening to you guys, because it is.
Matt, you're the man, dude.
I can't get enough, and the only way that I can, I believe, you know, that will make the difference is for you guys to see me 5 years down the road running a company that's
exactly right.
Yes.
You know, that has morals and values and is treating the customers with the utmost respect, and, you know, just concentrating on gaining that trust and that, you know, that lifelong friend that you're going to have to kill their bugs, you know.
Awesome.
So I've had customers tell me that. I've had customers that probably haven't had a bug issue in, you know, 2 years. You know, they're still call them up. Hey, come on over, keep them bugs away. You know, so I know it's not just that. I think that's the kind of the secondary part of why I'm going over there. But there's a handful of customers that I specifically will schedule and then not schedule another person for another hour, because I know I'm going to get into a conversation with them.
Put an hour-long time clock.
So, you know, I tell everybody, like, once you get to a certain point, you obviously want to not be in the field so much and start working on the business end of things. Also another thing I learned from you guys, but there's always going to be customers that I'm going to want to be, you know, interacting with out in the field, you know. So I'll be doing all my office work and, you know, all those types of things, but then I'll have, you know, Burns' house to go to, you know, have a cup of coffee and talk about what's been going on lately. And that is so rewarding in this field, you know, just to be able to bond with customers over an array of different things, military included. You know, I have a lot of military vets that, I mean, I can't tell you how many hours of conversation I've put in the last couple of years with. Because I think, like, most of the World War II guys are gone now, but there's still Vietnam vets out there that, you know, love to just sit down and tell you their stories. And I eat that stuff up, you know, like I almost forget that I'm there to do their pest control.
Right.
And I get into a conversation and he's talking about, you know, being in the jungle and all this stuff. And I'm just like, we'll worry about your pest control another day. I got other customers to get to, but thanks for the conversation. But I just, there's that aspect of pest control I'm never going to be able to give up. Like that's the part of me that will always be in the field, to connect with the customers, and I think that's a huge, important thing, long term, because a couple of other companies that I worked for, the owners or managers had been out of the field for so long that I just felt like they lost touch with, what the goal was, know, and to me in pest control and the way that we're growing our company is, to be forthright with your customer service, and treating their house as kind of a secondary thing. Like your profession is having relationships with these customers.
Yes.
Cause it's cause I've definitely had customers that have, like, working with other companies that are just, they just want to try out the new kid on the block. Their goal is to not really find a company. It's to, get the best price. And, there's not really anything that we can do about those customers, but the customers that care more about who's in their home and what are they doing in my home, and how good are they at their job? Those are the customers that I want, so I've said no to customers on inspections that I've gone to just because it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like they were maybe going to fit into the BugPro family quite like I want them to, so I've had feelings with customers, as I'm sure you guys have. Everybody listening, has had those customers where it just doesn't feel right, And we don't need all the customers, I mean, with the companies that we have here, and the amount of people that are in Reno, there's plenty enough for everybody. I don't need all the customers. I just want ones where the pricing, my personality fits with, who they are as people, and it just makes sense for my type of personality to be taking care of their bugs. So
Matt, you've got some wisdom that is beyond your experience as an owner, my guy. And obviously, you've been in pest control for a long time. And we're short on time. I wish we could keep talking to you forever because the conversation's awesome. You're great. I think we're definitely going to have you back on here 6-12 months. I'd love to hear more about how this door knocking thing goes for you. I mean, we've got lots of experience there, so we're going to have to.
And even though the cameras are off, you guys know I'm still going to be hitting you up. Of course. I'm still going to be asking your guys' advice and seeking it out. So
I check Messenger at least once a day. So
yeah.
So Matt, we'll get you back on, and for everybody else that's listening in, we appreciate you guys listening, especially for this special Memorial Day episode. And Matt, we appreciate you and everything you're doing for the industry. Your military service, much appreciated.
Thank you.
And for everybody listening, if you have a coworker, manager, or an owner who could benefit from listening to this episode, especially if they're a veteran, the best way to say thank you to us is to share this episode with them. If you haven't joined the Facebook group yet, go find the group and join. It's BugBucks Plus. Lots of information and great connections there. And if you have a topic you want discussed on the show, drop it in the group. As always, this episode is brought to you by BugBucks Plus, the #1 training and education platform designed to help you build and scale your pest control company. Visit bugbucksplus.com to sign up and start building today. Thanks again for listening in, and until next time, keep building those pest control companies.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please show your support by subscribing and leaving us a 5-star rating. Thank you, and we'll catch you on next week's episode.